All right, Colin at Fight for Truth has fallen into the errors, falsehoods, and lies of the high partial preterist slash postmillennialist view of Bible prophecy. And he's going to talk about a beast. He doesn't know what a beast means. This is what I find in both preterism and futurism. Here's Dr. Mark Hitchcock, who's a dispensational futurist, and here's his chart of the unfolding of Bible prophecy in the future. So there's a pre-tribulation rapture, and he calls it the rapture, but this is false. It's a pre-trib rapture, because we know from 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18 that the coming of the Lord, the second advent, and the resurrection of the saints and the rapture are all the same event. All three of them are the same event. The second advent, the resurrection of the saints, and the rapture are all the same event, not two temporally separate events, rapture and then a 7-year period of great tribulation and then the second advent. Okay, but see, this is future from our time. So the Antichrist world empire is only a 3.5 literal year reign, and the Antichrist is said to be a sea beast, the sea beast of Revelation 13. So they don't know what a beast means either, because they think it's a future Mr. Diabolical, whereas the Preterists believe that the Antichrist, the sea beast, was a single solitary individual in church history, namely before 70 AD. Okay, so that's the whole Preterist position here. Let's listen to what Colin has to say here, though.
This brings up the question, who is the beast of Revelation, and when does he come into the picture? What does this mean? Well, I would posit to you that the beast of Revelation has actually already come. He's not in our future. He's in our past. Now, don't get me wrong. He was in the future when this book was written. He's just not anymore. In fact, the grand majority of the events of Revelation are also not in our future. They are in our past. These events were written to the early church, and the book actually...
Okay, so the events of the book of Revelation, including the rise of Antichrist, is not just in the past, it's way back in 70 AD, long before the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. That's what he means in the past. See, as an historicist, I can say too that the Antichrist rose to power not long after the fall of the Roman Empire, therefore it's in our past. But that's not preterism, that's historicism. You see, so in Daniel chapter 7, I call it What Rough Beasts and the Antichrist, because in Daniel 7, the Antichrist is called the little horn. The little horn of Daniel chapter 7, that's the Antichrist. Daniel 7 contains the first mention of the Antichrist in all of Scripture. Daniel 7 is the first place where we have this Antichrist being talked about. Dispensational futurism says the Antichrist will be a future single solitary individual human being who will reign only after a mythical pre-trib rapture and only during a mythical 7 last years of Earth's history, or at least the last 3.5 of that 7 years. It's all complicated, but that's what the futurists teach from the Mark Hitchcock outline here. Okay, so 7-year period of great tribulation, that's another paper. Daniel 7, What Rough Beasts. Preterism says that Antichrist was a single solitary individual human being like Caesar Nero. Both of these are perspectives are not taking into consideration the fact that a beast represents an empire, not a single solitary individual human being. Okay? So Colin's going to go on to say it was Caesar Nero. Okay?
Says that. Let me demonstrate this to you using the beast as an example. Revelation 13:18 says, quote, "This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So is this past...
Now, he's going to go to the gematria there, the 666, which can be applied to so many different people, the 666. But notice where he goes, Revelation 13. Well, in Revelation 13, we don't just have a beast. We have two beasts. Revelation 13. I'm going to keep up. Let's see. I'm going to go to Daniel 7 and Revelation 13. Let's do that instead. Because right here in Daniel 7 it says the 4 great beasts come up out of the sea, and these are all indicative of empires, not single solitary individual human beings. There can be one king over each one of these empires at any given time, like Nebuchadnezzar was the head of the first beast, the lion with eagle's wings that represents the Babylonian Empire. But it wasn't Nebuchadnezzar that was represented by this beast that came up out of the sea. It was his empire, the Babylonian Empire, followed by the Medo-Persian Empire. The second one, the second beast, like a bear, raised up on one side, 3 ribs in its mouth. And then a third one, like a leopard, this represents the Grecian Empire and the conquest of Alexander the Great. And then, of course, a fourth beast, terrifying and dreadful, exceedingly strong, iron teeth. That is the iron monarchy of the Roman Empire. So these are empires, not single solitary individual human beings. This little horn arises. So after the fall of the Roman Empire, the fourth beast, 10 horns spring up out of this, out of the fall of the Roman Empire. And 3 of them are plucked up by the roots before this little one, this little horn, could arise. And of course, the little horn will have a mouth speaking great things. And you have a heavenly interlude here, verses 9 and 10, back to the earth. I looked because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking, the Antichrist was speaking. Again, does not arise until after the fourth beast, after the fall of the Roman Empire. And then Revelation 13, that's right. Let's see, plucked up by the roots. So Daniel 7. So a beast that rises up out of the sea indicates an empire. Let's go to Revelation 13. See, there's 2 beasts in Revelation 13. A beast rising up out of the sea, continued 42 months, had a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words. Right? It's all about worship, 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 worship the beast. They worship the dragon. So there goes doxology. Doxology. Doxology is the study of worship. You know, what does the Bible have to say about worship, praise, reverence for God versus worshiping Satan? These are literally worshipers of Satan, according to Revelation. Right? Michael Knowles, the papist, had a video called These People Actually Worship Satan. And he did a review of the Satan Con nonsense. And I went to the Bible and I said, well, according to the Bible, Michael Knowles, since you're a papist, if you worship the way the Antichrist papal church tells you to worship, you're actually worshiping Satan yourself. You see? Satan's house divided against itself. So you got the papist, Michael Knowles, going after the Satan Con people and their silliness. But no, this all comes from within the professing Christian church, just like the apostasy of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 talks about. The apostasy cannot come from Satanists. It must come from within the church, the professing Christian church. Papal Rome is a professing Christian church. And so haughty and blasphemous is her words, that she thinks that she is the one true church, the only one true church of Christ and the apostles, and all that nonsense. 42 months, there's the time times half a time, the 1260 days, day equals year principle, 1260 literal years of papal rule, papal domination. Again, all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. So there's some predestination for you. Into captivity he goes. But here's another beast that rises up out of the earth. Again, this beast is another empire. So you have papal Rome, the beast that rises up out of the sea, the little horn of Daniel chapter 7. Go through Daniel chapter 7. The 4 beasts, right? 4 beasts, the Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Grecian Empire. The Roman Empire doesn't fall until the 5th century AD. Not 70 AD, not 70, 476 AD. Then these 10 horns arise out of the fall of the Roman Empire, the 10 tribal kingdoms that made up the Roman Empire after its fall in 476 AD. Ostrogoths, Burgundian, Vandals, Heruli, Visigoths, Suevi, Alemanni, Franks, Saxons, and Lombards. 3 of these would be plucked up by the roots before the little horn could arise. But it could not happen until after the fall of the Roman Empire. Now remember, at the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, that's the fall of the Roman Empire, 476 AD, the Roman Empire was nominally Christian at the time of its fall. It wasn't always Christian, it was pagan. Okay, it was Christian Rome. So it went from pagan Rome to at least nominally Christian Rome, and then papal Rome. Okay, pagan, nominally Christian, at least nominally. And there were many true Christians during that time. Don't get me wrong. When I say nominally, I say, they fell into tremendous error already during and after Constantine's time, before the fall of the Roman Empire. So I say nominally Christian. There were many good Christian men and women and children during this time, but by the fall of the Roman Empire, it was Christian, the Roman Empire. And then it became papal Rome. So Rome pagan, Rome Christian, and then Rome papal. And the 10 horns, okay, 10 lesser tribal kingdoms, 3 of these would be plucked up by the roots. Here's Dr. John Gill, and he writes, out of this kingdom, that is out of the Roman Empire, the 10 horns symbolized the 10 lesser vassal nations that made up the suzerain empire of the Roman Empire after its fall upon the dissolution of it about AD 476. Dr. John Gill, in his commentary on Daniel 7:24, gives Mede's list here. He gives Sir Isaac Newton's list. Again, both of these very similar to my own. I was just reading an Adam Clarke, who was a Methodist, an Arminian, is saying the same thing. So this isn't, Calvinist, Arminian. This is men across denominational lines who are saying, yes, these are how the prophecies are laid out. I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast and about the 10 horns and that other little one that came up, before which 3 of them fell, because this horn had a mouth that spoke great things, great propositions, great assertions, as Martin Luther would call them. And he said, Martin Luther, remember, in his Bondage of the Will, said, if you take away assertions, you take away Christianity. There is no Christianity without assertions. What does he mean by that? Assertions are words put together that mean stuff. Not Pentecostal, quote, speaking in tongues, gobbledygook that doesn't mean anything. They're not even words. These people aren't even speaking a language when they do that. Nobody can understand it. No, God speaks propositions, words, assertions, words put together that actually mean stuff. And this little horn has a mouth that speaks great things. And it's in a negative sense here too. As I look, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them. So this little horn is very important. Makes war with the saints and prevails over them. The 3 kingdoms that were uprooted of the 10 were the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. I think that's the best interpretation of that. And these were the last vestiges of the Arian heresy. These kingdoms held to the Arian heresy in church as a Christological heresy in church history. So you got to look up and know something about the Arian heresy, how men like Athanasius stood against the Arian heresy. So these 3 uprooted before the little horn could rise to power. And then once it did, it continued for 1260 years. Again, Daniel 7 made war on the saints and prevailed against them. Revelation 13 verse 7, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. But this other beast right here, this earth beast, having 2 horns like a lamb, very Christ-like principles when this empire started. Again, a beast is empire. That's what a beast represents, not a single solitary individual human being. So when Colin
calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of who is about to emerge in world politics. No. Revelation 1.
wait.
Is this passage written about future Christians in modern day America? And is the beast a global leader who is about to emerge in world politics?
No, because a beast is an empire. It's not a single solitary individual human being, Colin. Nor was it a single solitary individual human being from way back in, pre-70 AD. A beast is an empire, en toto, in totality, not a single solitary individual human being. So, while I commend you're trying to refute dispensational futurism, right? The 5 main false teachings of the dispensational futurist eschatological system. Number 3, that the Antichrist will be a single solitary individual who will only rise to power. A third temple in Jerusalem will be built. The Antichrist shall enter into it during his reign and claim to be God, taken from a fallacious interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. And also that the majority of the events of the book of Revelation will be fulfilled only during this mythical 7-year period of Great Tribulation, taken from a false interpretation of Daniel 9, 24 through 27, and the time gap they insert between the 69th and 70th weeks. See, the modern nation state that calls itself Israel over the Middle East has a pivotal role to play in end times events. A lot of these folks are, can rightly be called, Christian Zionists. That's where you get Christian Zionism right here, because they think that nation in the Middle East that calls itself Israel is actually Israel. It's not. The church, Christ's body, is the Israel of God. Just because a nation over in the Middle East, in 1948 starts calling itself Israel doesn't make it Israel. Okay. His second advent and the rapture are temporally separate events separated by a 7-year period of Great Tribulation. All this, each one of these points needs to be refuted. But you don't replace the errors of futurism with the equal errors but opposite errors of preterism. Equal but opposite errors. Okay, let's get through this. Must soon take place.
Very audience.
Yep. Beware of preterists who always go to must soon take place. See, this was supposed to happen in the next 3.5 years. No, if you look up the text, the servants which God gave him to show his servants the things that must soon take place. It's that must take place in haste. In haste. So preterists read into this soon being, this must all be fulfilled within the next 3 to 4 years. That's what this means. No, that's not what it means. When Jesus gives us, because the book of Revelation is Jesus' book, authority 42 months, he is hearkening back to Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. The little horn again shall speak words against the Most High, wear out the saints of the Most High, think to change the times and the law. They shall be given into his hand. The saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. A time, times, and half a time. That's what Jesus in the book of Revelation, John, who wrote it, obviously, but it's Jesus' book, was hearkening back to, is this time period. Time times half a time. 1,260 days, 42 months in verse 5 of Revelation 13. This beast would reign. The sea beast of Revelation 13 is the same as the little horn of Daniel chapter 7. You see that? They're connected. Speaking words against the Most High, persecuting the saints of the Most High. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed. Right? Earlier he said, this gave me tremendous anxiety and alarm. Okay, that's what Daniel said. That's what Daniel wrote. But I kept the matter in my heart. And remember, heart, mind, and will are all synonymous terms in the Old Testament. They're all synonymous terms throughout the Scripture. Heart, mind, and will. I kept these things in my mind, in my heart, in my will, as part of my purpose. So what else can we say? A beast, my whole point in this is that a beast is not a single solitary individual.
Which we just read, John says that those who are wise, those who have understanding, can calculate the beast's number and the number of his name. But surely no early Christian, no matter how wise they were, could possibly have understood the mark to be microchips or credit cards. Those things didn't exist, and they were not in their immediate future at all. The passage also says that the number of the beast is the number of a man. So if you want to know who the beast actually is and what the mark actually is, then let's ask the real question.
The beast isn't a who. The beast is a what. And it is an empire, Colin, not a single solitary individual human being. You know, you guys, you're just losing it here at this point. It's not in line with the Reformation. It's not in line with Hippolytus, Tertullian, Irenaeus, who all viewed these as successive empires. They know that these were empires. They knew that the Antichrist would not arise until after the empire in which they were living, the Roman Empire, was to fall. Hippolytus, Tertullian, we've done that before. We've gone through Irenaeus before. The little horn shall spring up in their midst. These things then shall be in the future, beloved. Right? That is Hippolytus. The legs of iron. Who is this but the Romans who hold the sovereignty at the present time? And the 10 horns, emblems of the kingdoms that are yet to rise after the fall of the Roman Empire. These things then are in the future. Already the iron rules, but the little horn shall spring up in their midst. These things shall be in the future, beloved. This is all Hippolytus. Hippolytus. Who are these but the Romans, the fourth beast of Daniel 7 and Daniel chapter 2? And he says that Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 need to be read parallel to one another. Hippolytus says if we set Daniel's own visions also side by side with this, Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, we shall be able to show how concordant with each other they are and how true. So that's Hippolytus, quoting from the Old Testament prophet Daniel and Daniel 7, right here, Daniel 2, and he does Daniel 7. So that is Hippolytus, the extant works and fragments of Hippolytus, part 2, treatise on Christ and Antichrist. That is from volume 5 of the Ante-Nicene Fathers. Ante meaning before, pre-Nicaea, pre-Council of Nicaea in AD 325. So those who wrote before this time. Hippolytus, of course, dies in 235 AD, so the early 3rd century. Tertullian said we should pray. Christians ought to pray and offer prayer on behalf of the pagan Roman emperors of his day. Nay, for the complete stability of the Roman Empire itself and for Roman interests in general. Because we know that the rise of Antichrist and all the doom, the persecution that Antichrist brings against the church is only being restrained, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the restrainer, by the continued existence of the Roman Empire. That is Tertullian. That's why we pray for the continuation, Tertullian said, of the Roman Empire. Look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the restrainer. What obstacle is there but the Roman state? The falling away of which, being scattered into 10 kingdoms, 10 horns of Daniel 7, shall introduce Antichrist upon its own ruins. That is Tertullian, volume 3 of the Ante-Nicene Fathers. Again, dies in the early 3rd century AD under the Roman Empire. He's actually the father of Latin Christianity. Tertullian spoke Latin, not Koine Greek. What else? Yeah, a beast is not a single solitary individual.
What man would a wise Christian have thought this number referred to at the time it was written? And the answer to that is actually easier than you think. Nero Caesar, the of the Roman Empire and the most brutal persecutor of Christians who has ever existed.
The most brutal persecutor of Christians who has ever existed. That's oh my goodness. Really, have you ever heard of the Diocletian persecution from 303 to 313 AD? Diocletian dies in 305, but the persecution begun under his name continued on until the Peace of Milan in 313 AD. Did you not know that in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, there were Christian men there at the Council of Nicaea to defend the doctrine of the Trinity who were missing limbs because of the persecution they faced under Diocletian, or the what's called the Diocletian persecution? I think one was missing an eye because of the torture that they endured. So yes, Nero was a disgusting persecutor. So was Marcus Aurelius. What's the worst persecutor of Christians that has, no, wrong. Nothing compared to what this says, Daniel chapter 7. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High. This horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them. Okay, this is speaking of papal Rome, not Nero, not Nero. Yeah, the worst persecutor of Christians ever. This is, you want to talk about your preterist presuppositions getting in the way of church history and historical theology. There it is, right there. Very sad to witness. Very sad to see. We got Jeff Durbin. I think he's talking about Matthew chapter 24 again, as if all Bible prophecy needs to be funneled through Matthew chapter 24. Absolutely incredible. Not credible at all. You preterists are falling into errors. Revelation chapter 12, verse 14. Revelation 11 through 13. Let's go to 11 through 13. Because Revelation 11, the two witnesses prophesying, 1260 days clothed in sackcloth. The nations, that is the heathen, trampling the holy city 42 months, 1260 days, time times half a time, day equals year. In Revelation 11, but Revelation chapter 12, you got the woman in the wilderness, 1260 days, nourished. After the ascension of Christ, after the fall of the Roman Empire, is when that 1260 literal years starts. And then verse 14, the woman, time times half a time, to be nourished in the wilderness. And then Revelation 13, 42 months, persecution of the sea beast. But Revelation 12, verse 14, time times half a time, here is Adam Clarke's commentary. Adam Clarke was an Arminian, not even a Calvinist. He was a Methodist. But notice how Adam Clarke, his commentary on Revelation chapter 12, about verse 14, says, the Holy Spirit, when speaking of years, symbolically has invariably represented them by days, commanding, for example, the prophet Ezekiel to lie upon his left side 390 days, that it might be a sign or symbol of the house of Israel bearing their iniquity as many years, 390 literal years, day equals year principle, and 40 days upon his right side to represent to the house of Judah in a symbolical manner, that they should bear their iniquity 40 years. Again, 40 days equals 40 years, day equals year principle. The 1,203 score days then, or time times half a time, or 42 months, that the woman is fed in the wilderness must be understood symbolically and consequently denote as many natural years. Years. And that did not begin until, look at Adam Clarke's commentary. This is his whole commentary in Revelation chapter 12. Lots of stuff he wrote here. But look at what he says, the 10 kingdoms, the 10 horns of Daniel chapter 7. Okay? The Ostrogoths, the Huns, he includes the Huns. I don't include the Huns. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Franks, Vandals, Suevi, Alemanni, Burgundians, the Heruli, Saxons, Lombards. These are all after the fall of the Roman Empire. See that? Very similar to my own list. Adam Clarke is saying the same thing. 3 of these would be plucked up by the roots before the little horn could arise. And then, of course, the 1260 years of papal persecution. Not Nero, not 70 AD. First of all, how would the saints in Jerusalem be persecuted if they had fled to Pella? Right? You're talking about Rome and then Jerusalem, Rome and then Jerusalem. See, preterists go back and forth between Rome and Jerusalem, Rome and Jerusalem, Rome and Jerusalem. Oh, man. Anyway, so lots of inconsistencies with the preterist position here. It's a sad thing to witness. I do lament, but I have my work to do, and that is to defend the biblical presentation, which is historicism, which the Protestant Reformation held to, the ante-Nicene writings on this subject all held to. And yes, Matthew chapter 24 is partly about the destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And Jesus did prophesy that as prophet. Matthew chapter 24 is a blended prophecy. It's a prophecy, 1, about the temple destruction and the destruction of Jerusalem, and 2, about his own second coming. That's what the preterists won't see, because they're so used to hearing dispensational futurists talk about Matthew chapter 24 as only having to do with the future mythical 7-year period of Great Tribulation. But it's not. It's a blended prophecy. And I actually think some dispensational futurists have recognized that as well, which is good. That's good. It's a good start. But you got to rip apart their whole system here, dispensational futurism. You got to tear apart their whole system, not just one aspect of it, but this whole thing is a crumbling mess of error and inconsistency. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you made it this far, we'll talk to you soon. Soli Deo Gloria.